The bullet was already in the air. One Filipino sniper, lying flat on a concrete rooftop in the southern Philippines, had committed to a shot that gave him no margin for error. Below him, an American hostage was being walked through a narrow courtyard at gunpoint. The men flanking him had operated in this jungle for years. They believed no one could reach them here. They believed the jungle was their protection. In the next 3 seconds, every one of those beliefs was about to be tested by a single round fired from a position they had never detected. It began with a disappearance. The American, a civilian contractor overseeing infrastructure work in a remote southern province, was taken in the early hours before dawn. A small, well-organized cell of militants had moved with precision. No warning, no confrontation, no witnesses willing to speak immediately. By the time the local authorities were formally notified and the information had climbed the chain of command, the hostage was already deep inside the jungle corridor that connects several ungoverned provinces. A place where mobile signals fail, where roads become footpaths, where armed groups have moved for generations with the kind of confidence that only comes from knowing the terrain better than any map can capture. Filipino special forces were deployed within hours of confirmation. They moved in small, self-contained units. No media announcement, no press briefing, no official statement beyond what was absolutely required. The lead sniper assigned to the primary extraction team had been in active service for over a decade. He had trained in precision long-range shooting, in the stillness required to hold position for hours without detection, and in the specific psychological discipline that the role demands. His unit had conducted dozens of operations across terrain exactly like this. Jungle, distance, armed opposition, a civilian life in the balance. But every operation is different. And this one carried a weight that the others had not. A foreign national, senior commanders watching every decision, and a window for a clean outcome that was narrowing by the hour. Intelligence gathered in the first 12 hours placed the hostage inside a cluster of low concrete structures approximately 40 minutes on foot from the nearest accessible track. Surveillance confirmed he was alive and had not been seriously harmed. It also confirmed the detail that made the operation significantly more complex. The hostage was being kept physically close to at least one armed guard at nearly all times. He was being used, deliberately, as proximity insurance. A direct assault on the structure carried an unacceptable risk. Negotiations had already been attempted through back channels and had stalled before any meaningful dialogue could begin. The decision came down through the chain of command with a quiet finality. The sniper team was the only viable path to bringing this man home. The team positioned themselves before the second dawn broke, moving into place while the jungle was still dark and the militant sentries were at their least alert. They identified the courtyard as the critical point. Twice each day, once in the late morning, once in the early afternoon, the hostage was moved through it. A brief period of exposure lasting no more than 40 seconds. The sniper identified his position on a rooftop that provided a direct sight line into the courtyard from an angle that the militants had not considered worth covering. He lay flat against the rough concrete and waited. The calculation was already running in his mind. Distance, wind direction at ground level versus wind at elevation, the angle of the sun, the shadow lines in the courtyard, the precise position the primary threat would occupy in relation to the hostage as they crossed the open ground. The first window opened and closed without a shot. The alignment was not clean enough. The hostage and the primary threat passed through the courtyard, but their positioning was wrong. The geometry of the shot would have placed the hostage in danger. The sniper held. His unit held. They reset, drank water from their canteens in the heat of the afternoon, and they waited for the next day. Patience is not a passive quality in this kind of work. It is an active discipline, maintained against the pressure of knowing that the window is finite and that a second failed opportunity might mean no third chance. The team communicated in brief, controlled exchanges, and confirmed their positions as the light changed and the jungle settled into its night sounds. They were ready before first light on the second day. The second day's window opened just after midday. The courtyard was flooded with direct overhead sunlight, which meant sharp shadows and high contrast, conditions that are both a gift and a challenge for a sniper. The hostage appeared at the far entrance, moving with the slow, compliant shuffle of a man who has learned that compliance is survival. The primary guard was 2 steps to his left and slightly behind, exactly the alignment the sniper had identified as the one clean angle. The mathematics resolved in a fraction of a second. The trigger was pressed, not pulled. 1 round. The primary threat dropped before the sound of the shot had reached the courtyard. In that silence between the trigger and the report registering in human ears, everything changed. The hostage, as he had been instructed to do in exactly this scenario, as anyone operating in high-risk environments in that region is trained to do, dropped immediately to the ground. Flat. Arms over his head. Face in the dirt. He did not look up. He did not run. He trusted the training and he trusted the team that was already moving toward him from their staging position at the perimeter. The extraction unit covered the ground between the staging point and the courtyard in a controlled, disciplined advance. Secondary threats were identified and contained. No further rounds were fired. The entire engagement, from the moment the trigger was pressed to the moment the extraction team had the hostage secured and was moving him away from the structure, lasted under 4 minutes. The American was moved through the jungle at pace, supported by 2 soldiers, 1 on each side. He was assessed for injuries as they moved, standard protocol. He had sustained no serious physical harm during captivity beyond stress, dehydration, and the cumulative toll of days without adequate rest. He did not speak much during the extraction. Those who were present later noted that he appeared to be processing what had just happened in real time, moving through stages of comprehension that would have taken most people much longer to arrive at. By the time the team reached the extraction point and the transport was confirmed, he was calm, quiet, present. The hostage was evacuated and received medical attention within hours. He was reunited with his family within 48 hours of the extraction. By his own account, relayed through those who spoke with him in the days that followed, he had understood very little of what was happening in the moments before the shot was fired. He had heard nothing before he dropped. No crack of a distant rifle. No warning shout. Just the sudden, instinctive drop of the man beside him, and his own body responding to years of safety briefings and emergency protocol training before his mind had consciously registered the sequence of events. That training, he said, saved his life as much as anything else did. The preparation that happens long before the crisis is what determines whether you survive the crisis. The sniper was later commended within his unit through internal channels. There was no public ceremony. No press release. No interview given to a major network. The Filipino military conducts dozens of complex operations each year across the southern island groups. Operations involving armed groups, civilian hostages, difficult terrain, and the constant pressure of protecting communities that are far from the attention of the international media. The men and women who carry these operations out understand, at a fundamental level, that recognition is not the point. The work is the point. The outcome is the point. And the outcome, in this case, was a man who went home to his family when the alternative was very real and very close. What this story reflects is something that rarely enters the mainstream conversation about regional security in Southeast Asia. The southern Philippines has been a theater of sustained, complex conflict for generations. The armed groups operating there are not unsophisticated. They understand terrain, timing, negotiation leverage, and the value of a foreign hostage as a political and financial instrument. Countering them requires a level of expertise, patience, and operational precision that takes years to develop and that never stops being tested. The men who do this work operate in a space that most people will never see, making decisions under conditions that most people will never face. And they do it with a professionalism that deserves far more acknowledgement than it typically receives. The hostage went home. The sniper went back to his unit. The jungle remained, as it always does, vast and indifferent. And somewhere in a military file, in a record that may never be fully declassified, there is a single line describing a shot taken at midday in a remote courtyard and the life it preserved. Here is the question worth sitting with. When precision and patience are the only things standing between a person and a catastrophic outcome, what does it cost the people who carry that weight? And does the world owe them more than a line in a classified report? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories like this one matter to you, subscribe to Timeless Tale. There are more of them waiting.